So next bus, this is also 2020, also manufactured August of 19. This one has similar complaint, no start, but I did notice that right now the key is on. See, the radio is powered up, but we have no cluster. Cluster is dead. But if I turn on the headlights, I get a headlight warning. So that means the cluster has a good ground, it has a good power, but maybe it's not getting that ignition signal, which could be a loose connection at the back of the cluster. Like the terminal popped out, or the terminal itself spread open. But I'm going to go back here because the fuse for that is in this panel. Oh, look, this thing's already unclipped and everything. So maybe they were looking around in here as well. If I pop this off, come on, let go. We've got all the fuses, and according to the chart here for fuse locations, we are looking for instrument cluster ignition, which is this 10 amp, which is this 10 amp. And looking at it, it looks okay, but I'll have to get my meter in here. Again, I'm just gonna double check, make sure we don't have anything loose. We don't see any of the green crusties. And then I'll go get my my meter and see if we can find anything. And just for giggles, let's see if we get a crank. No crank, and we don't even hear any of the relays clicking in here. So we will have to double check. It could be an ignition relay. Yeah, because it could be that nothing is powering up, which is kind of what it looks like back here. Because when I switch this from off to rear, we should hear the engine solenoids or injector cycling or some sort of mumbo jumbo should be going on. We have nothing. So that is actually, we are going to check the fuse here to see if we have power. My guess is we don't have power across this fuse, and then we're going to have to go back to an ignition relay, which is this one. This one's, nope, that one, ignition relay. So we'll check that. Could be we got some crusties or something going on there. See if we've got anything that's loose. Don't see anything. Let's grab the meter, see what we got for voltage, and go from there. All right, so let's check our battery voltage. We got 12.3. It is on the charger here. So that's reading 12.3. The switches is still in the on position. So that's also when I'm 12.2 is what I'm getting here on this. This is electronic power, electronic ground, which kind of bypasses the starter. So from the battery, it's going to go to a power stud on the frame, and then from that power stud, it's going to come here. So here we've got our starter relay. This is the power coming from the battery, or from the starter, I'm sorry. So it goes from that power stud on the frame to the starter, from the starter to the alternator, and then the alternator into this box. So that looks good here. That one's good. That one's good. So anyway, let's check our fuse here. This is our ignition fuse. We've got ground on that side and ground on that side. So we have no power coming in to our fuse. Just for fun, let's go ahead and power this thing up. Okay. And we hear a bunch of relays click. The compartment lights back here come on. I did hear the cluster power on. It as a tone test when it gets power. So that is clicking on. So we do have an issue upstream. So let's go ahead and pop this relay out, and we'll take a look and see if we've got everything we need there to energize that relay. All right, so this is the ignition relay here. We've got ground on that control side. We should have, and we have ground on that. So we're not getting power to control this relay. We have power there. So we have power, and it's not going out to the load circuits that are on that relay. So now we need to pull out the dash transignition relay, which is this one, because this is the relay that feeds power to the ignition relay. So let's check. We have ground here, and we do not have the key switch coming in here. So I just push this guy in, put in the relay. So when we apply power here, everything comes on. So we're losing the key switch from the key switch signal from the front of the bus. So everything powers up. So let's look at the drawing, see which wire it comes from. This is the electrical drawing for that PDU box. Down here it shows that this is for the ISB 17, ISB 6.7 liter engine. So that's what we're working on here. So here's the ignition relay that we tested, and we did not have power on terminal 1, which is that coil to drive this relay. We didn't have power there. And in the video I mentioned that comes from the transmission dash ignition relay. And so we can see here that this circuit here loops up over here and is an output from this relay. The other wire, there are 2 wires on pin 1. The other wire just runs up here to an ignition dropout relay to drive that relay. Or, I'm sorry, to provide power for that dropout circuit. So pin 1 on our transmission dash ignition relay does not have power on it. And so if we follow that circuit down, it's going to come here to splice 9. Splice 9 has 2 branches. So there's a branch that goes off to the left and a branch that comes down here. Just real quick, the branch that comes down is power for ECM ignition. So we follow this line, it goes through this fuse, and then on this side of the fuse, it comes up here and goes to ECM ignition. And so back to splice 9, the other side of this splice comes over here and comes in from the ignition switch on the J1 connector. So the ignition switch, it's pin L, and on the wire itself it's going to have the markings 1102 and is a pink wire, 16 gauge. So that is the next place we're going to look, is following this circuit from basically the front of the bus. It does go from the ignition switch actually in the driver's compartment to the rear run switch, and then from the rear run switch it comes in here. So in that drawing I can pull that up as well and show you that. But we were just looking at this PDU drawing here. That's where all the relays are, is in that PDU. So the rear switches are part of the frame drawing. So let's take a look at that. Open this in Acrobat. And so those switches are right here at the top of this drawing. And so we have the engine start switch and then the run switch. Power comes in on pin 5 from the ignition switch up front. And then from here, depending on whether it's switched to front or rear, both of these circuits actually splice together here on 29. So it doesn't matter what position this is on, it's going to feed the same ignition circuits as long as it's not in the off position. All right, so that comes here through the J1 connector. So here are the switches here, which also interrupt that circuit. So I noticed here that we have, these ones aren't even plugged in. So that's definitely going to affect our ability for these circuits to function. So let's just plug this in, see what happens. Hey, look at that. Everything powered up. Perfect. All right, so now that we found that, everything's plugged in, everything sounds to be powering up, so let's see if it'll crank.